Thank you very much for showing up.
Yeah, good to see you. Mr. Chairman,
What's going on anyway?
I was on the phone with Larry a little bit ago, and he informed me, I didn't realize how fast this comes, that tonight will be his final night as our chairman. And I think we ought to take a moment. I, for one, am grateful for Larry and his leadership. Let's take a moment and thank Larry. As someone who has stood and walked a mile or two in Larry's shoes as the chairman of the county party, I know that it is, what did we say earlier? It is a labor of love and often more labor than love. But thank you, Larry. I really appreciate it. We all good to be with you tonight. As always, I will spare you a long, droning on speech. And I don't know, how much time do we have?
As much as you
A few
need.
minutes. And then I just,
30 seconds.
let's talk about what y'all want to talk about. 30 seconds? I can't even do a commercial that fast. All right, so the Senate passed what, in my view, is a really weak version of school choice early on in the session. We've all talked about this before. I've long been a proponent of universal school choice and really believe that the tax credit option is the best way to do that. Votes weren't there. The House made it better. The House took the Senate's relatively weak bill and expanded it to include more eligibility for more people. And now we got to navigate the differences between those two. My strong preference is that the House bill is better, but we'll see what we can get. Second is tort reform. I'll be real brief on this. The Senate has been bogged down in a tort reform debate for 5 weeks. I wish I could tell you that I was optimistic that this was going to yield an outcome that was good for our economy. It looks like the trial lawyer is probably going to prevail. There have been some test votes so far that really haven't gone the right way. And, the negotiations are ongoing. I will tell you the funny part. These lawyers, I'm not an attorney, right? And so most of this debate has been these lawyers trying to out-hypothetical each other on the floor to make points. And they come up with increasingly obscure hypotheticals to try to say that, that you're evil. And no, my hypothetical shows that you're evil. It has been, I hope none of you have suffered through watching it. It has been a grueling debate. I'm trying to think of some positive news. The Speaker of the House and the Governor stood behind the podium today and said they're ready to cut taxes. About time. About time. I think their proposal is to take the highest rate to just below 4% from currently 6.25%. Maybe we do better than that. We'll see. But I do think we're going to get pretty significant tax relief by the end of this session. And thus concludes my monologue. What do y'all want to talk about? All right.
You passed gas taxes a while back.
Yeah.
And supposedly we have all kinds of extra money that's hits $50 waste. Our roads are terrible.
Amen.
When are we going to do something about roads?
I thought about this earlier today. I think about roads a lot, but okay, so the question is, the General Assembly enacted a gas tax increase in 2017. I would like to remind you I voted against raising taxes, voted against the bill. But nevertheless, we definitely have infrastructure needs and they require a lot of money. The state is flush with road money, has tons of road money. The problem is converting the money into asphalt, right? And so here are the totally insufficient, I'm sorry, reasons I've gotten so far. The thing that takes the longest time with road construction, widening lanes and so on and so forth is right-of-way acquisition, right? To do right-of-way acquisition, you're dealing with multiple private parties, people who own real estate. And if you're one of those people who owns real estate where the state's trying to take your property and build a road, you definitely want to be treated fairly, and you're probably going to lawyer up and drag the process out a little bit, right? So there's step one. It's just right-of-way acquisition takes a lot of time. As part of right-of-way acquisition, another problem is the utilities. Anytime you build or redo a road, you often have to move power lines or water lines or the cable line or all the rest. And so the utility right-of-way process also adds with a wide years to most projects. Then you run into the complexities associated with the federal regs around what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do in order to maintain federal funding for our projects. And so my point is, in saying this, I think it sucks. It's a terrible situation, and if I could ever figure out how to make it go faster, I would. But it's not a money problem, it's a logistics problem.
Okay, I'm actually much interested in new roads.
Yeah.
Or expanding. I'm not maintaining them.
You don't want to fix some potholes. Yeah, so you can go on the I wish I can, if I email it to Larry, will you send it out? Yeah. They are patching a lot of potholes. They really are. And Penny's has made a shift, Penny's for Progress locally has made a shift from funding new construction to doing a great deal more resurfacing, repaving, which is absolutely the right public policy choice. And I think the state would show you a ton of stats too about how, the money that's been collected, a much higher percentage than you would have expected at the outset has been dedicated to fixing roads rather than building new ones. With the exception, of course, I know we've all seen it, 26 and 85 are taking up billions of dollars. But we got to do that. I mean, it's critical to our economy to widen those interstates that are major choke points for commerce. Anyway. I wish I had a better answer. I'm sorry. Yeah, Sheila.
On the first day of session, American Defending Freedom and a lot of other groups we had a press conference about protecting women and the privacy for women in bathrooms and locker rooms, and that seems to have gone to the wayside. I heard Senator Henry say that it's not a priority, and he doesn't think the Senate's going to be working on it.
Yes.
This session. I just wanted to ask you, why did we have a press conference the first day of session to talk about how we were going to protect women and protect our children in these bathrooms, and now all of a sudden it's not a priority anymore?
All right. Sheila, thank you for asking the question. That's my bill.
Oh.
That's my bill. So the bill would, in K-12 and higher ed, the question is about protecting women in private spaces, right? From men who say they're women and want to go into the women's locker room for whatever reason. This actually happened in Rock Hill. Y'all know, y'all familiar with this? Yeah, and I introduced in the budget last year a budget proviso to solve this problem. It was adopted, but the problem with the budget proviso is it's only good for 1 year. You need permanent law. The other reason why we had to do it in a proviso last year and couldn't do a permanent bill is because of some reticence on the part of some in the Senate to create another conflict with federal statute, right? Because expensive litigation and all the rest. That's their argument. That ain't my argument. I'm saying all I can do is what I think is right, and other people can make their own choices. I can't help what federal courts are going to do. I can't help what the Biden administration is going to do. All I can do is vote my conscience and the interests of my constituents. Today, we don't have those problems. President Trump is abundantly clear that he takes the view of the bill we introduced and the proviso we enacted last year. So the Office of Civil Rights and the Department of Education and all this Title IX stuff, we don't have to worry about that anymore. I've gone, Sheila, to your question, you're right. Senator Hembry is the chairman of the Education Committee. In a committee, the chairman has unilateral discretion over what bills get considered and what bills don't get considered. If Greg has decided not to do it, there's nothing I can do to force Greg to do it. I've asked him politely, impolitely. I've joked with him. I've probably gone back at him six different times since we introduced the bill in a substantive. I made a point to go see him and talk about it. I know others have done it too. Do what now? Yeah, probably get Renee involved. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why he's doing it. It's infuriating.
Do you think it's related to Trump and the fact that he doesn't see it as that much of a danger right now, that other things are rising up to the top of the priority list?
I'm hesitant to talk about what his motives are because I, struggle to know what's in his heart. I'll tell you what he's said to me is basically he's minimized the importance of the issue, right? And that it sort of doesn't merit time in the committee. Obviously, I disagree or I wouldn't have introduced the bill. Now, I will say this. If we don't get the bill moved through, committee and permanent law, what are we going to do? Proviso again. Proviso again. That proviso is coming, and blessedly, to enact a proviso takes 24 votes. There's 34 Republicans. I doubt there's 11 of them who can vote against it. So we're going to put the proviso back in if we can't get the bill. Yeah. All right, I'll come back, but I'll go here first. I'll try to go the windshield wiper the room. All right.
To piggyback on the gentleman's question about road.
Yeah.
One of the issues, as we all know, paving a mile of road is doubling in price of what it used to be pre-COVID. And the asphalt is used, a lot of it recycled now as opposed to purpose, so it's not lasting as long.
Sure.
The roads that we need more attention on are the secondary roads, the neighborhood roads, development roads. I mean, just the stuff that the big projects don't involve with the utilities. Those roads are always paid through C funds that are allocated down to county councils.
Correct.
And with the prices going up, the amount of roads we have not been getting increases in C funds like we need, not really need. So all that money that
You've been talking to Kevin Madden. You've been talking to Kevin Madden.
No,
Okay.
But actually, I mean, I've been involved with the Pennies for Progress a
Yeah.
lot, and Highway 557, you remember that? You have front row seat on that.
I did.
But it's our small roads and our neighborhood developments, and then turns it over to the county. As the years go by, they have potholes.
Yeah.
The C funds from the county council are the ones that are what fixes those roads, and those are the roads that most of us are
Sure.
knocking our
Yeah.
front end out of the line. What can we do to get the SCDOT to push more C funds down to the county council? So that's the quickest way to get those roads fixed. There's no red tape there.
All right.
They get their money, they pick their roads.
Two observations. The first is the county, with the support of the delegation, I don't get into all the weeds. I'm not quite sure I could articulate all the weeds because it's still a matter of interpretation right now. But we are in a bit of a dispute with the Department of Revenue right now about the fair allocation of C fund dollars to York County. We feel like we're being shorted. And Kevin Madden has the evidence to kind of back that up. So there's one, we're working on that. Two, in last year's budget, Senator Johnson and I co-sponsored an $8 million earmark that went to our C funds program. We're going to do it again this year.
Good.
I don't know where, I don't know if it's going to pass, but we're going to ask for it again.
Thank you.
And so that'd be 16 million over 2 years, which is basically a 50% increase in the annual allotment to C funds for York County. So I totally agree with you. That C funds is important, and other than fighting DOR and trying to get money for it, I'm open to suggestion if there's something else I can do. Yeah. All right, coming back, windshield wiper back this way. All right, yes, sir.
Two gentlemen talked about road paving and stuff. I talked to John Giggs about this.
Yeah.
You have roads in Rock Hill that don't even have lines. You can't even see the lines. You have to join in the roads where either a paving machine won't go by. Going down White Street, Main Street, Wood Street. There's a question about state road versus city road, but I think they hire outside company to draw the line, so they ought to just get together. Who can you get in touch with? I got two questions though. Who can you get in touch with, maybe work with some of the Everett Studs guys to get this rolling, talk to John Geddes or whoever? And also, the dismantling of the educational, in these things, how's that gonna affect us locally? I've got a friend of mine, is a teacher's wife, my wife's a teacher. How's that gonna be funded locally, you know, to give us some kind of insight on some of that?
Sure. All right, so let me go to roads, and then we'll come back to education. All right.
I mean, lines aren't that expensive.
They're not. Margaret, you need to put your finger in your ears. You're not going to believe what I'm. The regional I'm joking because I've been trying to get Margaret some no parking signs for like 2 years at an intersection in Lake Wiley. But the guy we deal with on local, road issues when they come up, somebody calls and says, hey, they hadn't cut the right of way over here for a long time. Can you send somebody up? There's a bad pothole here, can you come patch it? His name is Jason, and with the exception of Margaret's issue, I have found him to be pretty responsive to requests on fixing stuff. So if it's a state road, tell me the name of the road, and I'll call Jason.
You see at the Sacramento to Robertson Road down here?
Yeah. And I'll call Jason, and typically, if Jason can work with you, he'll work with you. Margaret doesn't think so, but Jason will typically work with you if you can.
But I mean, if you get a vendor that's out contracted out, I feel sure you got a state road secret. It looks like they, get together on this, draw the lines down the way. I mean,
Yeah.
John Gates told me what I told him. He said, I even got flipped off the other day because, you cannot fail.
Right, yeah. No, it's a safety issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and so on the ranking of prioritization for allocation of, road resources, safety is always number one.
And it's not like relocating the line.
Right, it's a strip of paint. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the educational system, defunding, dismantling the education system.
Oh, yeah, that piece.
Basically.
You're talking about the Federal Department of Education. Oh, what a blessing that'll be. What a blessing. President Trump is absolutely hitting the nail on the head with that.
How's it gonna be funded, like?
All right, so Senator Johnson and I looked into this like 2 years ago at some length, and at the time, our new superintendent asked for more time to navigate stuff before we dropped this on her. It's been my belief for a long time that the state spends more money to comply with the strings attached to federal funds than we get benefit from federal funds. We don't need that money. We don't need the strings attached. We'd be better off without it. But a superior alternative to that is if the president is going to block grant all the education funding to the state, then it becomes a less, austere choice for the General Assembly. But, I mean, if you look at the Federal Department of Education, they're just more trouble than they're worth, period. And so I think the quality of life for the educators that you talked about will be greatly enhanced by eliminating all of the nonsense paperwork and bureaucracy that comes along with federal education funding.
Yes.
The funding part, how will that be affected? But, it'll all be funded by the state, of course, I guess, if we do.
If the federal government block grants funding to the state, what that means is the Department of Education turns into a checkbook. And they just send money to the state with no strings attached. Right? And so it would be allocated to the education system in the way that the General Assembly does its budget, which I think would be it should be a massive improvement. I mean, think about all the testing requirements we could do away with. I mean, anyway, it would be an absolute godsend if the president and a Republican Congress can deliver on that.
What's your bill number, education bill number?
Which thing?
Your Senate bill and on education, on not on education, I'm sorry, the women, protecting women's rights.
Thanks for bailing me out. I didn't. All right, right here, and I'm good.
Okay, if you go to see me the name on me quick of who I can contact, precinct 1 is 94 homes of the 12th oldest ordinary. And these people haven't paid taxes and they're all starting to age and Bank Street. I am telling you, if you're going, you go this way and this way on Bank Street, and the potholes are so bad that you have to go in the other lane where there's oncoming cars, or you have to go off the road And that has been like that for years and years. And tell people you want me to contact on that one, I don't want to see any fatalities or accidents.
I call Jason. You know, I'm happy to, and I know exactly what part of Bank Street you're talking about. It is a terrible shape. I agree. I'll call Jason.
Your banks.
All right. We're working on Margaret's sign to keep the intersection blocked. In the back.
Yeah, could you speak to, the repair of the bridge over 7 to 7 over the top of the river?
You talking about the bridge deck replacement?
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, I know. So one of the things me and the kids like to do when it's hot is go kayaking down the Catawba. And so we put it in Westminster Park and we get out at Riverwalk. And one of the scariest things is when you're kayaking down the Catawba, you can look up. And you can see daylight through portions of that bridge. No, it's really not. All right, so DOT replaced the northbound. All right.
Counter up.
Yeah, right, yeah, that was it. Yeah, I'm cut off. They started playing the music. I gotta leave. Was it 2 or 3 years ago? I believe it was the northbound side of the bridge deck it was the southbound side of the bridge deck got replaced because that was when they had the crane catch on fire, and the contractor pushed it into the river so that they wouldn't have to delay the project. Because it was a big deal to replace a bridge deck and shut down, the principal artery into North Carolina from South Carolina. I don't know the date that the other side is going to get fixed, but I know it's on their list and it's pretty quick. It's pretty soon. It'll get fixed before a lot of other stuff does. Yeah. And believe me, on these calls to Jason, I've talked to him about seeing daylight through the bridge deck. I mean, it is not something that goes untalked about. That's not a word. Unmentioned. That's the word. In our conversations with DOT folks, I talk about it quite a lot. Yes.
Attorney General talked about a state DOJ committee.
Oh, at the state level.
Yes.
Oh yeah. All right. So, all right. I'll make 2 observations about SC Doge. Well, 3. All right. One is there's this really wealthy guy at the beach named Ron Reddy. ROMREDDY. Y'all are looking him up. And he formed an SC Doge PAC and I think he put $3 million of his own money in it. And he is about to tee off on a lot of the same concepts that Elon and the fellows are doing in Washington. There's one. So there's going to be a lot of support around that concept politically that'll push reticent legislators in the right direction. 1. 2, there's an SC Doge bill, which I've co-sponsored, and it creates basically a quasi-governmental process reasonably akin to that of the federal Doge, where you get people from the private sector to come in and inspect the inner workings of government and seek out efficiencies. 3, at the beginning of this session, I switched from the Judiciary Committee to the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee writes the budget. And I'm on 2 subcommittees. One is Constitution and the other is K-12. And I did kind of what you're supposed to do in these meetings. I sat there and listened for 3 or 4 meetings. Didn't really, I wanted to see how they do their business. And after about the, 3rd or 4th one, I'd had enough. I mean, anytime these agencies come in, all they talk about is how they're going to spend the new dollars. They don't talk about what they're doing with the existing budget. And I'm 1 out of 46, but I make every single one of them when they come into those committees. I go through the entire org chart. I want to find people we can get rid of. I think I'll have some pretty good headway on some of these in the education arena. My aim is to reduce the employment at the State Department of Education by at least 25% in this budget cycle. And those efficiencies are really easy to come across because there's so much waste over there. Anyway, so I love that the people are finally taking back control from the bureaucracy. I mean, and that's been the conservative dream for 40 years, right? And they're finally making the bureaucracy accountable to the representative process.
Yes.
Right? When the people speak, policy needs to change.
That's right.
Right? And that's basically what Doges do. And so those are 3 observations on it. I love it. And I think I'm optimistic. Unlike with tort reform, I'm pretty optimistic about our ability to doge up South Carolina's government.
Is the governor for?
Lovely question.
I'll answer your question this way. There are a lot of people who are thinking about running for governor in 2026. All right. Yes.
So, I believe another conservative dream is to close primaries.
Yeah.
In the last almost 20 years. What are your thoughts, Wes, about this heated discussion going on about primaries versus convention? Do you think that this convention idea might be the impetus to finally close primaries? Or do you think we might go another way towards convention? There's a lot going on right now with that, and I just wanted to hear what you thought about it.
Sure. I support closed primaries. I always have. I've voted for it. I've co-sponsored bills. It's not going to happen. Here's why. You can divide the opposition to closed primaries into 2 categories. I'll divide it into 2 categories. One category would be the honest opposition, and one category would be the self-interested opposition. Right? So in the self-interested opposition category, that's pretty self-explanatory, right? It's folks who are afraid of how the electorate would change in their own races if primaries were closed. Right? And and there is a cohort in the General Assembly who holds that view, that it's self-preservation on their part. Right? The dishonest opposition, I'll call it. The honest opposition is well-meaning conservatives in rural areas, where a Republican will never be elected sheriff, where a Republican will never be elected solicitor, and the only choice those Republicans have is to vote in Democratic primaries for sheriff and solicitor. Otherwise, they cede control of law enforcement in their hometowns to the Democratic Party. And so you think about Chester, Fairfield, Hampton, Bamberg, those types of counties, and the legislators who represent those counties would be thrown out of office summarily by their people if they voted to make it impossible for Republicans to vote in Democratic primaries. And that the sum of the dishonest opposition, and I'll call the honest opposition, is enough to kill the bill.
How many of each? What percentage?
Most of the opposition is in the honest opposition category. In the Senate, I can't speak to, I don't know about the House that much, but in the Senate, the dishonest opposition is probably 3 or 4. And then the honest opposition is probably 8 to 10. So, but nevertheless, I'll keep co-sponsoring bills. Anytime an amendment gets brought up, you can count on me to vote for it. I believe it, but I am not optimistic that it's going to happen.
Well, what about the convention piece?
Oh, the convention.
Isn't that already?
I'll say this. If that was our method of election, Jeb Bush would have been the Republican nominee in 2016. When you empower political insiders to pick the nominee, you were going to get political insiders as your nominees. Period. I'm opposed to that. I trust this grand experiment we have in representative democracy. I'm not about to support taking away the vote from tens of thousands of people in York County who vote in our primaries. I think that would be a terrible idea, and it would be extremely injurious to our cause as conservatives and the party that we need to be strong and robust in order to win elections.
Yeah.
What's the latest on judicial reform?
Judicial reform, which I've talked, I've stood here and talked about it several times. Additional judicial reform will require leadership from a new government. The next time we're going to take a swing at that will be in 2027. Paul.
Okay, 2 questions. Dr. Simmer, what's going on with that vote?
Yeah.
And going back to the DOJ legislation that you co-signed, is that correct?
Mhm.
Are you part of that? Would that cost us money? Or is that would be private sector would just come in and do it for free like Elon and his people?
That way. Free.
That plan?
Yeah. No, they don't
Because
even,
it is legislation.
they don't even get expense reimbursement and per diem for mileage and all the rest. They get nothing. It's pure public service.
Okay. And then the, Dr. Simmer.
Dr.
How's
Simmer.
that- How's that?
I'm tempted to make I'm tempted to make a joke, but go ahead. I'll say it this way: Simmer, the Senate is not going to confirm Simmer. It's not. I mean, I would be surprised if he gets a. I'll be stunned if he gets a majority in committee. So in the Medical Affairs Committee, right? When just like in the U.S. Senate, right? If you're nominated to be the Secretary of Defense, you go to the Armed Services Committee. In South Carolina, if you any of the health agencies go through the Medical Affairs Committee. I just do not. Does he even get a third of the Medical Affairs Committee? I don't know. And then
Tom Davis, does he still sit on that?
he does. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm misreading that. There's no way he gets confirmed on the floor. And I'm kind of hopeful that Medical Affairs sends him to the floor so that I have the privilege of voting no. But I'm afraid they're going to bottle it up in committee.
Okay, and who would take that position then? You'd have
It's
to appoint someone else?
up to the governor.
It'd be worse?
Potentially. Maybe worse, maybe better. It's up. I mean, that's it's the governor's call.
Do you have any suggestions you could give him?
I've offered plenty of suggestions. We say downstairs, because the legislature is on this floor and the governor and lieutenant governor are on the floor below. I've offered lots of suggestions downstairs, and I'd be surprised if this is the first one they took. I don't know. All right. Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask a question I asked at the Freedom Caucus while they were here a couple months ago, but a little differently to kind of make it more towards my intent, which was over Christmas period, there was a huge debate in the Republican community on X about the H-1B visa process and how it is applied and utilized by businesses in America. And I'm quite familiar with some of the South Carolina companies that would most likely use that process. So my intent is, what are you doing in the Senate to make sure that South Carolina hires Americans first?
Okay. So we have, South Carolina was one of the first states to do an E-Verify system. I'll tell you a funny story. Do y'all know what E-Verify means?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I got a call from this guy. It was I don't know, it was 2017, 2018. I won't say his business. He ran a small business, and he was complaining to me that I needed to call the Department of Employment and Workforce because they were telling him he had to fire all his employees. I said, what do you mean the government told you you had to fire all your employees? He goes, well, they're not legal. And I said, well, he said, we submit the paperwork. I didn't think anybody ever looked at it. And I said, sir, if You're asking me to call a government agency on your behalf so that you can hire illegal aliens. He goes, yeah, that's basically. And I was like, well, you called the wrong guy. I mean, paid it for you. But all right, so E-Verify. Are you familiar with deficiencies in the E-Verify system that you think can be statutorily remedied?
No, I think it's more of a corporate culture conversation because when you use statements like, we are hiring people for jobs that Americans won't do, that phrase alone disqualifies you as a leader in my book because you haven't either asked the right person or upped the game for the value of an American employee.
Sure.
Now, that means what pressures are on a business to prevent them from seeing value in an American, and then also what challenges do we have culturally that have put Americans in a place where they don't look desirable for existing companies.
You're hitting on something I wasn't ready to. Well, I wasn't really planning on but all right, here's.
Sure.
I think there has to be penalties on both the supply and the demand side, and criminal penalties on both sides. There are inadequate criminal penalties for hiring illegal aliens. It ought to attach jail time. It ought to attach significant fines. It's an issue I've been working on for a little bit. I don't have a bill to introduce just yet, but one is coming because I think that is the principal deficiency of our state enforcement mechanism is we do not do enough to penalize those who seek to thwart immigration laws to their economic benefit. And I would probably make the case that the penalties, now that President Trump is back, the illegal aliens themselves are getting subject to the criminal penalties that are on the books. But the employers who create the demand for that migration, we've done, at all levels of government, have not done a good enough job properly incentivizing them to hire Americans. I wish I would desperately, because
It's fine.
I wish I could stand here and say, and it's item A, item B, item C, but I totally agree with you. That's what we got to do. Yeah. All right.
To expand on that, I'm a business owner. I grew up here in Rockville, born and raised, lived here all my life. I own multiple companies in York County, and I employ a lot of people as a development company. I agree with his sentiment of wanting to hire legal American citizens. My problem as a business owner, and I don't think many people quite understand what I'm up against as a business owner, is I am limited by the people I can hire because of the people that will apply for my jobs. And so I'll be the first to admit, I have people who are not American citizens who work for me. The problem is I can't find American citizens who are qualified, who are willing to work and do the jobs that we do in the construction industry. And so what do I do as an American citizen myself, who I am 100% for the Constitution. I believe that is the gospel, and I want to have American employees, but I can't find them. And they choose not to work for me because when I interview them and I say, here's what the industry allows me to pay you as a wage, and they say, well, I'm making this much to stay home, and the government's paying me this as
What's your industry?
benefit.
What's your industry?
Construction.
Construction. Yeah.
I have so many people that I try and interview to hire, but I'm competing against the government because what they're getting paid to stay home. So, well, by the time I pay for daycare and this, that, and the other, I'm better off to stay home. And so I am forced to make a decision. Do I let my company go and squander, or do I hire people to get a job done and provide opportunity for myself and others in hopes to be able to bring American workers into my opportunity? What do I do as a business owner? Because I thread that needle of yes and no. I mean, I understand they're not here legally, but as a business, what do we do in that situation?
And then you're also facing the opportunity cost of training somebody who doesn't have the sort of
We do it, and
right?
we do it. We open that opportunity. We would hire, what a lot of people don't understand is a lot of Americans that we have to work for us right now in my operation today are so underqualified and they choose not to excel. whereas the illegals choose to go the extra mile and overlook. And what most people don't know is that most of the people in my organization who are not American citizens make more money, and because the market demands it, because of their qualifications and skill level and their willingness to do, than what the Americans are willing to do. And that's the sad part. They're not, a lot of my own people that I work with and that I grew up with are not willing to do.
I'll say this.
So how do I compete with the government? Because the government's keeping these people up.
I think we're commingling some different issues here. You know, we're talking about illegal aliens coming in, but the original question was about H-1B visas. Okay? H-1B visa workers are legal. Okay?
Yeah, sorry, I went off on a different, you're right. I mean, that was the H-1B, my bad.
All right, you know, as a senior C-suite executive during my working career, I sponsored many H-1B visas. And let me explain the way this is supposed to work. You're supposed to be able to prove that there are no qualified people in the area among which you're trying to hire before you can get an H-1B visa approved. So if people are hiring on H-1B visas and they have people in their local area who are qualified to do those jobs, it's an enforcement issue. That's what's going on here. And we need to make sure that the government, both state and federal, are doing their jobs to ensure that the people who apply for the H-1B visas and sponsor these people coming from India or wherever actually are filling jobs that there are no qualified, not people not willing to do, no qualified people. And then the illegal aliens, that's a whole different subject. Sure.
And then also sometimes some people don't know that they have the skills for a particular job, or you have such a speckled career that you don't look valuable to an employer because you look disorganized or you aren't focused, or you don't have one detail in a particular level of experience. That's why I say it's a corporate culture issue, because ultimately it has to do with HR policy and leadership, understanding, and desire, and philosophical decision making. So it's a tough one.
All right, so we've gone through as a people. I'm gonna go like bigger picture. H-1B, H-2A. These are federal government things. We've gone through what was it? Is it 36 million person invasion over the prior 4 years?
That's a great approximation.
Yeah. It is not feasible to fix that problem in a cost-free way. It's just not. There's no free lunch in this world, right? Fixing this problem will inevitably result in temporary economic dislocation in certain industries and in certain companies. It's going to happen. There ain't no free lunch. As a policy choice, I believe we as a people in the last election decided that we're willing to, endure some of those costs in defense of our borders, in defense of our culture, in defense of our national sovereignty. And I hate that there are costs associated with doing the right thing, but often there are steep costs associated with doing the right thing. I still think that shutting down the border and cracking down on illegal immigration and cracking down on those who abuse our laws to the detriment of Americans is worth the cost. But you have to acknowledge that there are decent, hardworking, kind, generous, patriotic Americans who are going to encounter some turbulence along the way. And I hate that. But to govern is to choose. And I hope we as a people will choose to defend our culture and our national sovereignty and our borders and crack down on illegal immigration. Because that, net, that's what we got to do. Understanding that there's going to be some costs along the way.
Do you think we're willing to pay the price? As a country?
Man, I hope so.
I'm serious.
I really do hope so. Yeah. All right, I haven't taken a question from this side in a while. On what?
Did I understand you say that
Yeah, they definitely are.
They are.
Yeah, in a lot of those counties, they are, yeah.
What is the affiliation there? I'm a little counterintuitive, but I'm not
So,
native.
as an example, President Trump is the first Republican to win Chester County since the Civil War.
That's shocking.
You know, I mean, there are loads of Democratic counties that have districts where a Republican can get elected to the House, but countywide a Republican can never win. And that's the math.
You think Republicans would not be able to mount credible, appealing candidates in those areas?
No.
They would not.
No. Did we get them all? Anything else? All right. Well, y'all, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth Enns, you all know Elizabeth. She follows legislation down there pretty closely. Once I'm no longer chair, I hope to help her follow some of that legislation.
Good news. The good news. Thank you, Wes, for showing up tonight. We appreciate that. And I'm excited to give you some great news. On your table, there's a little stack of sheets like this. I'm sorry that the font is small. Magnifying glasses are good. A couple things even that Wes brought up. He brought up the Doge situation. You can go to dogesc.com and you will find ROM's website. You can sign up to get newsletters from them and to be in the know of what they're doing. That's dogesc.com. And what Wes mentioned earlier about the Privacy Act, the Physical Privacy Act, Senate is 199, and the House bill, this is at the bottom of your page, is 3263. You will notice the very last line on your page has a name, Greg Hembry, and a phone number. If we want to see that bill move out of committee, they need to hear from us. And just like we saw last week with the Health Czar bill being stalled, it is because of the phone calls. They got so many phone calls. The secretaries were very polite and lovely, but they were tired. The reports I got that they were saying to people is, it's been a really long day. And that's great. They're doing their job. They were polite. They were very gracious. And all of you that called, I hope that you were polite and gracious when you shared your opinion. But that bill stalled, and the senators know that we are not interested in Dr. Simmer. Now, there are actually two names, if you are interested in calling the governor's office, there are two names that are, if we have to fill that position for now until we can change the law and get rid of that position, let's put a good person in there. One woman is Andrea. I'm going to have to spell her last name because I don't want to disrespect her by saying it wrong, but it's Nazaranko. She has been vetted and would be a strong conservative that represents our values. And another option is Dr. Matt Clark. And so you can call the governor's office, I will give you that phone number, and let them know we recommend this person or this person to be considered. And if you call the senator's office and say that, they'll say to you, you have to let the governor know because the governor has to put that name forward. So the governor's office number is 803-734-2100. You can give the governor a call and let him know. These are some suggestions of people that actually represent our values.
You mentioned that Matt Clark was a physician, doctor.
Yes.
Do you know the medical background of the Andrea?
My guess is because she was recommended that she's already vetted and that she has what she needs.
We don't know.
I don't know her full history, no. All right, so on this page, you will see, we'll just go through it really quickly. The first one is a closed primary bill. It is nothing different than what we have right now. That we have Republicans and Democrats and independents and they can vote whenever they choose and whatever they choose. It is so that legislators can say, look, we did a closed primary bill. It is not a real closed primary bill. There are conservative legislators that are fighting to add amendments to it, but So it's worth asking our legislators to bring it up so that the conservatives in the House can bring up amendments to at least have a scorecard of the vote. And so there's two reasons why the amendments get fought over. One that I have observed is when the Democrats bring 1,000 amendments forward because they want to stall things in the 11th hour. None of these important votes should ever make it to the 11th hour. They should have been passed a month ago, like Scout Motors getting passed in 2 weeks. Things that are important to the people should get passed a lot quicker. But somehow, all the really important things get left to the 11th hour so that they can get stalled. It's just a little ironic. So this, we can put some pressure that they bring this closed primary bill forward and then really support the conservatives that are going to bring amendments up, because even if it doesn't pass this time, it gives us a voting record that we can use to primary those who are not doing what they legislate. All right, next on the list is another closed primary bill. This is actually a real closed primary bill. It will probably never see the light of day because it was presented by the Freedom Caucus, which is unfortunate. But if you would like to let the chair know that you would like this bill to be considered, his name and number is on the sheet. Next, we have the DEI bill. This was supposed to be dealt with today, debated today, but it has been pushed to tomorrow. Some people are having some, let's say, wishy-washy ideas whether they think that we should vote on this or we think that we should make sure that DEI can't happen in our state-funded schools. So the recommendation was that you call tomorrow morning some representatives or email them. Calling really works best, but however you can let them know, we do not want DEI in our public schools. There is no place for that.
What about in other agencies though, too?
It actually covers the public schools, it covers state-run agencies and things like that also.
All the other stuff, not just
Yeah.
that. Okay, thank you.
Then we have some parental rights bills. We have a few different ones that have been brought forward. The next one on the list is 3638. This is to do with medical parental rights. The chair is Celeste Davis. We were told by leadership that they are going to pass this. We don't need to wait until the 11th hour. So that it can get stalled, so that it can't do what it needs to do. This is important for our children. This is important that in schools, this is important that our parents are able to actually parent their children properly. South Carolina actually fails when it comes to parental rights, and most people don't know that. They don't know that until DSS takes their kids away on a false accusation. This past summer, I worked closely with a family that someone gave a false accusation that their children were being abused. It was absurd. And DSS came in and they made them be removed from the home, and it was awful, and it went on for months. And it was just this very sweet family, and just somebody crazy who hated them had a false accusation. Someone with a record of crazy and had a false accusation, and they had to be removed from the home. So this is a major concern in South Carolina. Our parental rights are very important. Our medical parental rights, so that someone can't convince your child or your grandchild that they need to have some kind of surgery or do all these different things. This is important, that your children aren't having medical care without you knowing, without your consent, without you being able to walk through things in life with them. Yes?
Elizabeth, is age of consent included in the bill?
Yes, they want to change the age of consent to 18 so that it's not just 16. So that if a young lady is going through difficulties or whatever it might be, I mean, we have a pro-life law at the moment, but it used to be that young ladies could go get an abortion without their parent. You can't get an operation to fix a broken arm without your parent, but you could terminate and murder a baby. And so we need to change this to the actual adult age, 18 instead of 16. So that's included in this medical rights bill. That's something that we really need to start pushing so that it actually moves out of committee. So Celeste Davis needs to hear from us. There's another medical rights in education. If you have to choose two, I would go for the medical one first if we're going to work hard on one this round. If we just try to bombard them on everything, we just become noise. But if we pick some really important ones, my personal opinion is the medical first. So there's some other parental rights bills that follow it that are worth looking into. The 3118 is put out by the Freedom Caucus. It is an excellent bill. I don't think that it will see the light of day this round. And then the last one we talked about at the beginning, which is the Privacy Act. Now, Senator Climer was right. We're going to try to put it in a proviso again, but we can't just rely on that. We need the protection of our young ladies in their private spaces to be codified into law. And we have a super majority, so there is no excuse why this should not be. This should not be. Anyone who has a female in their family should be able to, no matter whether they're Democrat or Republican or independent, if you have a female that you love, then this should be important to you. And protecting young ladies and old ladies and everybody in between, it's important. It really is. So this is something that I feel we should be championing this cause. It was great to last night be at Winthrop University with quite a few from this table right here to hear Riley Gaines speak. And I'm so proud of her. It's not like she wanted to be a public speaker and be an activist. She wanted to be a dentist. And she was top choice she could pick whatever dental school she wanted. And now she's been thrust into a very different light, but she is championing the cause. She is continuing to just speak truth, and very graciously, I will add. And so I'm so proud of her. And we need to do our part here in South Carolina to make sure that we are protecting women, that we are protecting our children, and protecting our elections by closing our primaries. Any questions?
All right.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Thank you. I like Wes Climer a lot, and he's probably one of the better senators. He's definitely one of the better senators in Columbia. I disagree with him. I disagree with him about closed primaries, however. What he says is correct. If you go to some of the other counties where they're mostly Democrats, I had a senator tell me, he says, you know, what they do in those counties, they vote for the most conservative Democrat. In our county, the Democrats come and vote for the most liberal Republican. And I'm of the opinion that Democrats ought to vote for Democrats and elect the candidates they want, and Republicans ought to elect the candidates that we want to represent us in the general election. Independents can then vote in the general election for the Democrat or the Republican as they so want. So again, I don't agree. We need to keep pushing for closed primaries. If we ever want to get rid of Lindsey Graham, we're going to have closed primaries. That's simple, folks. All right, Scott Anderson is going to put his name in to be our next chair, my replacement, hopefully. He'd like to say a few words tonight.
Thank you, Eric. Well, he said it. My name's Scott Anderson, and I'm running for chair. Larry, we couldn't convince him to do it again, as much as we'd like to. He's done a great job, and I wouldn't be here if the current leadership didn't want me to be. So, if you like the job that they've done, I'm going to continue that if I am lucky enough to win enough votes on this. Okay, how's that? I'm not good with the microphone, but I'll try. Yeah, Senator Climer's a tough act to follow. He's very good, and I like a lot of what he has to say. We have a lot of room to grow. We've grown a lot in the last 2 years, but there's more. In the recent general election, York County, 88,000 people voted for Trump. Well, that's a lot. We've got 500 members today. There's a lot of room for growth. And I think you've heard it both from the senator and the doctor, that the more grassroots pressure we can bring to bear on our delegation, the more likely they are to respond to it. And you know, we'd love to get closed primaries. We'd love to, you know, maybe change some of the people that represent us. But I'm always reminded, I'm going to repeat myself now, so if you heard me last month, repetition. Okay. Milton Friedman, said a lot of good things, but one of the things he said is that the solution to the problem is not to elect the right people, it's to make it politically profitable for the wrong people to do the right thing. And so with enough members here in York County, we can really put pressure on our delegation to fulfill the will of the people. Now, what's that? If you haven't read the South Carolina Republican platform, it's recommended reading because it's really solid. There's just not a thing on there that doesn't have majority approval across the state. Some things more than others, obviously. But there's a great gap between what our ideals are and what's actually happening down in Columbia. And that's what we're trying to move forward with. So by growing the organization, we definitely want to move people toward the platform. And there are 3 values that I think, as I think about, the opportunity to lead this organization going forward for the next couple of years, that I think are very important. One is freedom, right? So this encompasses a lot, but freedom of speech, medical freedom, right? We saw the whole mess with COVID, how that got betrayed. Second Amendment rights, there are parental rights, we've heard a lot about that already. So freedom is a core value that we want our legislators to be enacting policies that represent that. The next one is prosperity, right? Well, Trump's doing his bit, making America great again, and the issue is every dollar that the public sector takes out of the private sector reduces our prosperity. It leaves that much less for investment, for private sector investment, for employment, and so we also want our delegation to support policies that will help us to be more prosperous, and that means cutting down on the size of government, really, which is, I wake up every day and I can't believe that what's going on in, some of you are older than I am, many of you are younger than I am. Government my entire life, all our entire lives, has only ever done one thing, and that's grow. Local, state, federal, it's all it's ever done until like 10 minutes ago, right, at the federal level. And what we're seeing there, now we've got an organization in South Carolina, other states that are starting to curb the government and limit the government, as the founders would have said. So it's a fantastic time to be alive and to see this. The last value, and this one might be a little controversial among some people, is unity. Now, we hear that word a lot, and it's used in a lot of different contexts, but as Republicans, we share so much in terms of what we value. And, again, freedom, prosperity. If you don't value those, well, I'm not sure what to say. I'd love to talk to you about that. I'd love to talk to you about that. But we share a lot. And, we want to try to unify the party around these values and use it to acquire more membership and grow within the county, and then, use it to make phone calls. Call the legislators. They react to it. I remember my former state rep, David O'Neill, talked to us one time, and he said, if you email, it doesn't matter. If you call, it matters, right? So when we have a hot topic, just like the doctor was just talking about, make the calls, right? And the more people we have involved, the more we can do that. So we have a convention coming up, is my understanding, and hopefully you'll all be there. And I'd be honored if you would vote for me for the chair. That's all I've got.